Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
We're gonna be praying right quick, then gonna get off into the praise and worship and jump right into the word. Father, y'all just thank you right now for the day that you have made. We should continue to rejoice and be glad in it. Father, y'all thank you right now for just letting your will be done and allowing us to let your will be done in our life. Father, y'all, we come against everything that's not like you, all the works of darkness, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we come against all forms of sickness, all forms of disease, everything that causes us not to be comfortable in our body. Father, y'all, we just cancel the assignment of the enemy as a whole, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we quench every fiery dart of the enemy right now in the name of your son, Yahushua Mashiach. Father, y'all, we just thank right now we walk in the light. Father, y'all, we think that we walk in the Ruach HaKodesh, that we will not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Father, y'all, we just magnify your name right now because you're worthy. We thank you right now. We come before your throne of grace boldly. We come right now, just magnify your name right now. We come right now, just let you know that you're magnificent. Let you know that you're marvelous, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we let you know that there's none like unto you, Father, y'all. For you alone, Father, y'all, worthy to be praised. Father, y'all, we magnify your name in everything we do, Father, y'all. We think right now we seek the face of you, Father, y'all. We seek the face of you, Father, y'all, on decision, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, in all our ways, we just thank as we acknowledge you, Father, y'all, that you may direct our path, Father, y'all.
Yes,
Father, y'all, we magnify your name in the name of Son Yahushua Mashiach, we pray. So be it. And everybody, we're back. We're going to be talking about the importance of fellowship. A lot of times, a lot of people have been dealt a bad hand with fellowship because of probably some of the bad experiences they've had in the Christian church or with other people in general that probably burnt their bridges or whatever like that with you. But we'll be dealing with fellowship. Comes from the Greek word koinonia, which is basically just just operating together as a whole. They're saying it's working together. It's like comradeship. It's like a group of friends having a common interest and they're focused on the same thing. They're aiming toward the same goals. Like you have comradeship in the army and certain military forces. They actually call each other comrades, and they have one another's back. And that's the way we should operate as believers. I mean, we should operate in communion, associating with one another, partnerships, friendships, and a lot of these things is what we're lacking as a whole, especially in Yasharal. We're lacking a lot of it. And when I get into fellowship, it makes me think about how the other communities are banding together and they're accomplishing things financially. It makes me think about group economics, basically when you get together, a collective group and pool their resource together. Primary example of group economics would be Black Wall Street, the way that they done theirs. I mean, we know that it was very successful the way they done it. I can't say how much the power of Yah was behind it, but anytime a group of people put their minds together toward a common goal, is usually successful. So we'll be even more successful. We had the power of Yah behind us banding together. And so this is what we're dealing with fellowship. It's like it's more to it than just being around one another. Like people associate fellowship with eating, and just sitting down talking. That's okay. That's just actually in company with one another. But fellowship is actually sharing the same things in common. You're actually sharing the same, common goals. You're actually operating as a whole, trying to accomplish something that normally takes longer to accomplish by yourself. This is why we see the Indians and certain ones having these gas stations and everything. And we see certain ones in Dubai and stuff like that operating together, driving exotic cars. Not that we're trying to get to exotic cars, but I'm just saying whatever you're trying to get to, it's up to you what you spend your profit on. But the common thing is that you have the money to do it. We would just do that which is right, in the eyes of Yah without being a good steward of our finances. But until we get to a point where we can get with somebody and band together as a whole that's saying that they're believing the same thing that we believe, at least the basic things concerning Yahushua Mashiach and salvation, it's going to take a long time to get to the point we're trying to get to doing it individually. And this is where fellowship comes in at, when you think about fellowship, you just, have to think beyond sitting down, eating cake and just barbecuing, whatever you want to do, whatever they do. They used to do in church, sit down there and they just have a good time talking, but that's okay. That's just eating together. We're talking about true fellowship. When there's true fellowship, it begins to be to a point where everyone is beginning to be successful. It's like there's no one left behind. And to do that, you have to kind of lock in with a group of believers and begin to write down whatever vision and goals you got figure out what you're trying to accomplish, and it'll become successful. But doing it by yourself, you got to think about it. These LLCs and everything that we see, like Walmart, Sam Walton, them, they started, but now that's like a big company. It's not all no one person doing it. And like we've been taught to have our own. We've been taught so much to, these slogans I use all the time: get it out the mud, and being a boss bee and all this kind of stuff. Just everything. Made man. These are the slogans they give you and make you think that you got to get it by yourself. But the people that's telling you this stuff have some force behind them. Especially when you hear it from a rapper, they're signed to a contract. They get an advance. Of course, it's retractable. They're going to get the money back from them once they start selling records, but they still get it up front. And then they put this, facade on. They put this, this front on, making us think that, hey, they just got it, from the strong arm, but they didn't. They got it from these record labels and these companies. So we have to, get beyond everything that's being flashed in front of us and realize, okay, what are we going to do to fellowship together so that we can accomplish things? This fellowship, understand, is not from a Christianity standpoint. When I'm talking about fellowship, it's not the common, like we say, going to have dinner type deal. We're talking about true fellowship. When there's true fellowship as a whole, we start dealing with, like I said, like comradeship. You're dealing with, camaraderie and stuff like that. You're in a position where you can actually say, okay, look, if I'm lagging behind in a certain area and we're actually doing business, okay, well, I have my Ark here, my Kofi here that can actually take up the slack in this area, and then now we're bouncing back and we're strong. But you can't do this when you start lagging behind and you're doing it by yourself. And this is the way that they want us, divided. This is why every time you would see groups like the Black Panther and certain ones band together, they would actually label them as a terrorist group because they saw what they were accomplishing together. They were just standing for their freedom. Most of them, we can't say everybody was perfect in these groups. We're not trying to praise groups, but what I am trying to praise is the idea of us banding together because we know what to do as a whole. And so as a whole, we know what to do as a collective people. Just imagine what we can accomplish under some, structured LLC with certain ones in certain areas, under certain nonprofit organizations that we can, deal with concerning trust funds and stuff of that nature, where we can operate on a level where we can maneuver in this actual system that we're in. Because in this system, you have to play chess. You really have to play chess. I know this is a worn out saying, but it's chess, not checkers. And I say that because the way that these entities are moving in the system that we're in over here in Babylon, they're moving in a way where they don't have the government on their neck like that. They don't have the government's foot on their neck when they get ready to maneuver in certain areas when it comes to certain tax brackets. But we can't do this unless we're empowered to band together, because most of the time it's discouraging when you're trying to do it by yourself and you're looking at the projections of what you're trying to accomplish, and it seems to be so far off. It's only because their power, and strength in numbers. But when you don't have the numbers to actually get to that point, then it makes it harder. Think about it. You have, this is just basic mathematics. You have 100 people, and all those people put $1,000 in. That's $100,000 right there. And then you go accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, and then you start breaking down that into bands of tens, and in those bands of tens, they start doing the same thing with the profit. And so now you're no longer splitting it with 100. Now it's 10 sections of 10 that's actually doing whatever small business that has branched off. This is just an example, and it's like, oh, you can keep the 100 growing and just grow the business. But the thing is, when you actually keep that dollar floating in the society, like we're in Yasharal and we're doing something. And another way to do group economics is support one another's business. When one is doing something as a whole, don't go buy it from the world and from the system. Start supporting one another. If you have somebody that's sewing, have somebody that's a mechanic, whatever they're doing as a whole, start supporting that person's, business. That way you can keep that dollar floating inside of us, inside of Yasharal, and not just giving it back, because we have the most spending power as a whole in Yasharal. When I do the research, we have the most spending power, but we've been most of us, not saying, who listening here, but just in general as a people, to go give it to certain jewelers and certain shoe companies and all this kind of stuff, and we're empowering them to get rich. But at the same time, you'll see a coach here out that's got a business going, you won't even support it based on probably some past experience, or because your mind is saying you devalued that and you put value on what they told you to put value on. We're not going to name these companies, but there's so many different companies we give the value to, and we give our dollar to, and we empower them. And that's like the opposite. That's the kryptonite of group economics. You know, for us to operate together as a whole, you first got to keep that dollar amongst one another. And we dealing with the dollar, but then also we start dealing with our also, you know, our companionship and our being concerned one towards another. You know, you're concerned about an individual's mental state of being also, because we have to take the blindfolds off and get behind the idea of get away from the idea of saying that you're okay when somebody asks you how you feeling today. Stop the generic line and saying, okay, I'm okay. If you're not okay, if you feel led to tell this person, okay, you can say, okay, look, I'm not fine, but I believe by faith I'll be okay. But this is what the issue is. And this is how we come together, you know, in prayer, or come together as a whole and start attacking the problem. But if we don't face reality, we don't get there. So it's like, you know, when I say fellowship, I'm talking as a whole, not just, you know, not just financial, but also we know that the words say money answers all things. We understand that, but, you know, we know that the love of money is the root to all evil, but there's a balance with it. And the way we do that is we have to make sure that we're empowering one another. We have to do that mentally. We have to do that, you know, in the ruach, spiritually, and make sure that we're doing it financially, you know, as a whole, so that the whole man can be okay. Not just, you know, like I say, beloved, I wish that you prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prosper. You got to make sure that their soul is okay. This stuff comes from a lot of stuff that I've been entertaining this week concerning the actual subconscious mind as a whole. Like, you have to make sure that you're, you know, thinking on the things that you're trying to accomplish and getting away from the garbage that's entertaining you, that's keeping you at bay, that's keeping you stagnated to a point where you plateau, where you're not growing any further because you're satisfied with the diet that this system has given you. Basically, all the information that they're downloading into your psyche on a regular basis, you're entertaining, and it's causing you not to act. You know, to actually act, you have to take action. And to take action, sometimes you have to use defense and block things out and absorb the things that you need so that you can take action. This is a whole lot in one, but I will say this is the definition of true fellowship. We'll go to Hebrews 10, chapter 10, verse 23 through 25. Yeah, really.
Hebrews 10, verse 23. Let us hold fast the profession of our believing without wavering, for he is true that promised. Let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching.
Now, I didn't read that, but we see that on the screen. It's the importance of fellowship right here. And so it's saying not the forsaking of assembling ourselves together. And so when we assemble ourselves together, this is basically when we start strengthening one another and start empowering one another, because this is the actual true fellowship amongst the believers, not just in general, but we're talking about fellowship with the believers in the Mashiach, the believers in the word of Yah, those that are standing whole to the faith, you know, that's holding the faith, that's defending the faith, that's not actually being, you know, turned away with all different doctrines of this world. And when you're not set up like that, you can actually see yourself actually assembling together, and knowing that when you assemble together, you'll feel yourself empowered. When you actually get together amongst those that believe the way you believe. When something is going on, you know, they'll begin to pick up on it. They'll say, okay, what's wrong with the culture? You know, what it is that's going on. You look like you have a low confidence. You know, it seems like something is bothering you, like you're you know, like you have a downward, you know, like you're down in your ruach. So what's going on? And you'll begin to pick up on that and begin to get with them and pray with them and figure out how can you actually uplift one another. And that's the way we have to do this. You can't do this on your own. We actually really need one another in a genuine way. Like, you have to actually, it's even important that you can actually, you know, assign yourself, if you can't, you know, figure out, you know, how to do this, you know, to like a prayer partner or something, or somebody that you can confess your faults to or something. If you seem like you're to be accountable to, like that, you know, it's like that way. If it seems like you're falling off, for those that are not, I would say, married in general like that, you know, because those that are married, of course, you know, you accountable, you know, with your partner, you keep each other on track, you know, with your wife or, you know, your husband, vice versa. And you're making sure that you keep each other on track. But those that are not married, you know, sometimes it's good to, this is why the assembly is good. You can actually have those that are there that you're dealing with. We're supposed to be, in communion, one with another. And we don't do this because of being over here in Babylon. It's like it has took us away from the idea that we were a nation. And here, since division has kicked in, it's like we having to learn all over again what's supposed to be natural. Like we were already amongst one another in Yashar. We were not having to be told to fellowship. Like this is being told because a lot of division is happening. By the time you get here, at this point in Hebrews, by the time you get at this point, biblically, it's like, okay, a lot of stuff has happened. The temple has been ruined. Everything has been, destroyed, and they're trying to rebuild. There's a lot of stuff going on. So it's like, this stuff has to be told again. Like, look, we were already a nation, but now that we're not a nation as a whole now, even though we are, we're divided. And so we have to come back together. This is where the new covenant comes in at. We have to be reminded of how we was as a tribe. As a tribe, we had one another. There was no division or anything like that. Everyone was assigned to their tribe and everyone looked out. And so anyway, that's basically what it is. You just got to make sure that we don't forsake this. This is important, actually making sure that we're around one another and that we're sharing each other's emotions and feelings and things so we can overcome attacks from the enemy. And so we'll go to the next script, which is John 13, 34 and 35. You can read it whenever you get it.
John 13, 34 and 35. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if you have loved one to another. Okay,
so this is how you're gonna know that, that people will know that you're a disciple if you have love one to another. If you're operating in hatred, backbiting, and things of that nature, it's not going to be known. They're going to be like, well, a bunch of heathens are running around, and that's not showing love one to another. It's not showing any type of concern one towards another when you're actually bickering, when it's schism in the body, as the word say in Corinthians, when you have all this one trying to compare one to another, rather than saying, okay, look, I understand that we can work together and we can actually operate together and we are truly concerned about one another's well-being. And if you're not, and there's division, then it's going to be like a mockery. So it's kind of like, you're crucifying the Mashiach afresh. It's like, hey, look, what did I die for if you're not going to even utilize everything that happened so that you can benefit from it and actually make sure that one another's okay? You're supposed to have one another's back rather than be fighting. Like I see a lot of bickering, a lot of fighting over doctrine and stuff of that nature. And that's not showing that you have love one to another. That's showing that you want to be right. It's like one wants to be right and saying the other is wrong. It's actually a spirit of ruach of pride. That's what that is. So got to make sure that we don't operate in that and make sure that we operating in love. We got a few scriptures that's explaining the importance of fellowship, because this needs to kind of hit home. If it don't hit home, it's like it's going to be a hard deal. You're going to have a hard way trying to make it, because a lot of these things that's going on that I see is not true fellowship. Like true fellowship is beyond sitting down eating. It's actually sharing, real sharing. I'm talking about sharing. Actually, you have to know what's going on with the individual all together as a whole. And sometimes you don't know that through them. You know that through when the gifts start flowing. Sometimes you know that through prophecy. You know that through, because when you go somewhere and you're actually in fellowship, where you're in fellowship with somebody, you're open to this person. Like you're open to receive, and it's like they're open to receive, and like it's like the spirit, the ruach begins to flow more. And it's like the gift of prophecy begin to flow more. It's not restricted because there's faith in the atmosphere. And the faith in the atmosphere allows it to move. So prophecy begins to go forth. And so even though this person doesn't say anything, like the gift of prophecy can flow, and you can come prophesy to them and let them know what the Most High told you concerning the scenario or the situation, and they'll begin to confess, yeah, I had this going on, and tears may break out, anything may happen. This is where prophecy begins to flow in the atmosphere that there's true fellowship. I mean, not saying that you got to have this as a whole, but we start dealing with the assembly of ourselves together. This is where this begins to flow at. And so we're going to go to John, 1 John chapter 1, 6 and 7. Can tell us about walking in the light and not in darkness.
Verse 6, 1 John chapter 1, verse 6. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and do not the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another, in the blood of Yahushua HaMashiach, his son cleanses us from all sin.
And that's what that was for. The blood was for to cleanse you from all sin. You know, it was like, you know, when you actually saying, look, I repent, I'm turning away from sin. Once you say that, you're actually saying, look, I reject sin at this point, and I received the sacrificial offering that Yahushua Mashiach gave his body so that we can be saved, so that we can come in, to the throne of grace boldly. No longer was it set up where just the priest was able to come in. Now the way has been made where you can come in. The veil has been written. Like now, the handwritten documents that was against us, the partition wall is tore down. We no longer are restricted by certain dogmas and certain rules and regulations that went on back then. This is why it trips me out when certain ones try to get to the point where they are trying to be so Torah strong to the point where they don't realize that when you start looking at the new and renewed covenant, that you can't skip over operating in unity and saying you're following the Torah. You can't say that you're following the Torah without saying that you have compassion towards your op or your culture. You have to make sure that it's all mixed up together in one. Like you can't just say, look, I'm following the law, and then at the same time operate in hatred and walk in darkness. It's not going to help you. You're actually under a ruach of deception at that point. And so therefore you have to walk in the light. And a lot of people I see walking in the darkness that are claiming to be followers of the Torah. And you can't do that. You can't walk in darkness. When I say walking in darkness, it's like we don't have to see it written in the Bible what they're doing. We know that when they're operating in division, when I see bickering, when I see confusion, the Most High is not the author of confusion, but the author and finisher of our faith. So we don't have to worry about whether or not they're walking in the light of darkness when we see what they're doing. When you show me what you're doing, I know at that point that you're walking in darkness and not in the light. And he's called us to walk into the light. Everything that was created from a standpoint of the light. You know, the angels are the angels of light. Like everything that's going on as a whole, the Most High is a consuming fire, is light. Everything that's happening on our end is based on light. We're the children of light, not the children of darkness. So therefore, when we do things based on the light, not the night. That's why you see it in the nighttime. Most of the time, you see a lot of crime going on. You see a lot of people tipping, a lot of streetwalkers, a lot of stuff happening. You know, the drug sales go up higher and stuff like that. You know, you can kind of get away because in the dark, you know, you can't be seen as much. You can tip around and you can hide. And it's the same thing as doing things secretly. When you're doing things in the dark, things that are not on the up and up, when you're doing things that are contrary to the word of Yah, you do those things secretly, you do those things behind closed doors, assuming that it won't come out. But when you're operating as a whole and you're fellowshipping, this is what saves the believer. When there's fellowshipping, one may be inside the group that may say, look, you know, the Most High told me that this is what's going on, or the Ruach could just begin to reveal this to me about you. This is a warning. And they'll begin to give you that warning because you're connected. But you can't, who's going to warn you when you're on an island all by yourself? And this is the importance of fellowship. When you start slipping away and you start taking a back seat. You know, if we look at the scenario one that may have been at one point just in the forefront of things, always in the mix of everything, always making sure everything is okay. And we see this person's energy just die down. Now all of a sudden, they don't really know what's going on. And they're kind of like, you know, staying off to themselves, where usually they're slipping away. And when they're slipping away at that point, if they're not a part of a group or a fellowship where they can actually be held accountable, what happens is they begin to slip away and no one is there to snatch them back in. Like when you're the only one in your family that's actually involved in the truth and you're not connected with anybody, you just learned the truth and you don't have any accountability. Well, at that point, what happens is you wind up, you know, slipping away and there's no one there to help reel you back in, and everything begins to go backwards on you, and everything that you begin to be in prior to coming in or prior to being saved began to be worse. This is why you see a lot of people that began to be worse off. And you may have knew them and they may have gotten saved. When if you've seen this person later on down the line, it's like they're worse than they were when you knew them back in the day. It's like, what has happened to this person? Well, what happened to them? They didn't have a support system. They didn't have a support group. Some of them do, but for the most part, they don't. Because most of these places that you're going to is not true support system. You just go and sitting down, listen to somebody, and then you leave. Or you eat a little bit here and there and you talk. But when true fellowship, you pray together, you worship together, you make sure that, you know, you share one another's thoughts, one another's ideas, emotions are being shared. This is when help can come because you're open. And you can't be open all alone. This is why we have to make sure that we're walking in the light and not in darkness, and make sure that we're actually not forsaking to assemble ourselves together in any form and fashion, because if we do that, we wind up setting ourselves up for the kill, and we wind up opening that door for House of Time to come in and snatch us. Because when you're all alone, this is what he wants. He wants you to be all alone. He wants you to be to a point where war is you against the world. Nobody likes you. It's like you can't seem to get along with anybody. This is confusion. And it's like, it's never a situation where you can't get along with nobody. If you can't get along with anybody and everybody you run into has a problem, usually it's you. There's something going on in your mind. It's something that needs to be settled to a point where you can be able to fellowship, because the word's not going to tell us we should be fellowship and we should be, assembling ourselves together, and it's going to be difficult and you can't find nobody to do it with. That's usually you're not seeking the Most High. Like he'll show you who to fellowship with or who to get with if it's that point in time where you need to be getting with somebody. Sometimes understand that you're alone and he's actually trying to teach you something or trying to show you something, but it doesn't stay that way. Once he showed you what he needs to show you, then it's time to branch out and get involved with, with a group, a support group, where you can actually make sure that you're being held accountable for what you're supposed to be doing. You're holding them accountable, and then when they see you falling, they can pick you up. But if there's nobody around, they're not going to be able to pick you up. If you're all on that island alone, that's where the enemy wants you at, all alone. He wants you to diss everything. He wants you to say everything is bad. Wants you to start talking down about the word and down about every group you've been with, to the point where now it's been so bad to now when you see somebody that's doing right according to the Most High, you can't embrace that group because of the fact that he already put the negative thought in your mind that nobody is right. And so once he does that, then, it's like you against the world. So nobody can help you because after all, nobody's right. And once he get that thought in your mind, then that's when he gets you all alone. Then the next thing you know, you start compromising your faith and you fall. You start allowing things to come in. Now, if you had that group around you, they would remind you that, hey, look, we don't believe in that. We don't do that. I think this is not of the Most High. And when you start getting around the group, they'll remind you, hey, look, you need to reel it on back in. You're slipping away. But how are you going to know you're slipping away at times when you're giving over into your flesh and you have nobody around you? You have to make sure that you don't operate that way. Make sure that the enemy doesn't get you all alone on an island where you don't have a support system. We do 2 Corinthians 6. We're going to do that. 2 Corinthians 6, start at the 14th through the 18th verse.
All right, 2 Corinthians 6 and 14. Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion has light with darkness? And what concord has Yahushua HaMashiach with Belial? Or what part has he that believes with an infidel? And what agreement has the temple of Yahuwah with idols? For ye are the temple of the living Yah, as Yahuwah has said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Wherefore, come out from among them, and be ye separate, says Yahuwah, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and ye shall be my sons and daughters, says Yahuwah Sabaoth.
Okay, so it's the thing. So come out from amongst them. Like you can't, these scriptures are here for a reason. Like you can't use certain examples to say, okay, look, I'm just gonna go do this or go do that or go hang with this particular group. Evil communications corrupt good manners. And that, and we know that the word says that. So we knowing that when you actually operate with somebody that's unrighteous, you're gonna wind up being unrighteous. I always say this all the time, you hang around 10 people that's operating in sin, then you're gonna be number 11 at some point. If you're hanging around them, if you're not trying to be a light to this group, most of the time people use this excuse, but the Most High got me witnessing. Sometimes you're not strong enough to witness to all these people at once. But we want to use this as it's a rebellious spirit, is what it is. We want to use this as the excuse to do what we want to do. You can't use that as an excuse to operate with unbelievers. Like, you shouldn't be in communion with an unbeliever. It's different when you're going around and your light is shining, you have to be around. But if you're not in ministry, then if you think that you're more powerful than the enemy, this is the thing we have to realize. We're talking about, you have to have the power of the Mashiach to overcome the powers of darkness. Through the powers of darkness, when the enemy begins to turn, when House of Time turned, he took a third of the angels with him, and they were already up there where you're trying to go. They were already with the Most High. They were already in, some people say heaven or the Shamayim. They were already right there. And so you mean to tell me if he can persuade them, he can't persuade you? And you saying that you're strong enough to hang around groups of people when these people are band together, you have that energy. All these people on one accord and they're operating in sin, and it's just you by yourself, and your little light gonna just shine. All of a sudden, you're gonna deliver them all. It don't work like that all the time. This is why he tells you not to do it. And you're thinking that you can do it because you feel like, okay, I'm strong enough. But eventually you give over into what they're doing. If you don't give all the way over, you start compromising to some degree. And the next thing you know, you start feeling comfortable. They start feeling comfortable, and then it's like there's no conviction, and you're caught up into something else, and now you're off by yourself. You went with them. And this will happen eventually. One is going to take over the other. Like, it's either you're going to draw them in or they're going to draw you in. And if you're outnumbered, most of the time they're going to draw you in if it's just you. This is why he sent the disciples out by twos. I mean, he didn't send them out one at a time. He sent them out together by twos, but you got just you want to go hang around a group of believers because you make the excuse, oh, they the family, or they this, whatever. No matter who they are, a group of unbelievers, if they're operating in sin on a regular basis and you know they're operating in sin, then you shouldn't be hanging with them. You shouldn't be going out with them. You shouldn't be kicking it with them. Whatever slogan we want to use is like, these things is the way to enter back into the world. It's the gateway to the world, starting to hang around unbelievers because the gate is wide open. The next thing you know, everything is over, like everything has been ripped, like the shield is ripped from off of you, the hedge of protection is from off of you, and you're wide open. Now you're wide open to entertain whatever spirits is coming your way, because now you said, okay, look, I'm over here and this is my group. You begin to connect with them and network with them. This is why people that's actually in cults and stuff start looking alike most of the time. You see a certain spirit on them that you see, and it's like this certain spirit. Most of the time it's the spirit of deception. It's like they're all under the influence of this cult leader, and everybody's with one mind and they have the energy and strength. When they're operating like that and you ventured off into some kind of group like that, you can't get away from it because like you're mentally attached to them. When you look at that on the flip side, that's how it is when you operate among believers. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're going to feel bad slipping away from believers to go deal with those that are operating in sin. And so we have to make sure that we're operating together as a whole and not trying to figure crutches, not trying to find crutches and outlets and stuff, certain groups that we're trying to hang with. We don't need any social groups or anything like that that's outside of the truth. These things are just sort of ways that the enemy come in and get you to join certain stuff. You shouldn't be connecting to anything that's outside the body of believers that you're saying you some kind of member or part of that's for social support. It's okay if you're a part of certain things that you're trying to say, okay, look, this is like some I'm in, but if it's a club or some type of social group, something that you have to, that's contractual verbally or something like that, you're saying you're one with them, then at that point you're connected and you're connected in agreement, whether you want to or not, with everything that they believe, because you kind of said, I do. This is why you have to make sure that you're careful, when you begin to join certain groups, even when you join a certain ministry, when they say they believe something, you're held accountable to what they believe because you said, I'm a member of it. You're only supposed to be a member of the body of Yahushua HaMashiach. We fellowship together, but your membership is with the Mashiach, not with man, not with an organization. You're identified by where you're from most of the time in the scripture. When we're dealing with Corinthians, he's writing to them because that's where they're at, in the city of Corinth, Ephesus. When he's talking to the Ephesians, he's talking to them based on where they're at, not because they just created some church and called it that. What I'm saying? It's not that. It's like they were there. They can't help. This is where they were from. And this is who he wrote to. And if you're connected to that, that's what he let them know what they did right or what they did wrong based upon the region that they're in at that time. So we just have to make sure that we're wise when we deal with fellowship. We have to make sure we choose our fellowship wisely. We don't just connect with something just to say that we're a part of something, just to say that we're, want to belong, but just for comfort. You don't want to do anything just for comfort. So we'll go to the next. So working together. So when we deal with working together, we start dealing with the idea of kind of like when we talk about one can chase 1,000 and two can put 10,000 to flight. Working together as a whole, we know that when we operate together, unity is going to be better. There's always going. I saw a group of Amish group moving an actual shed. It was a humongous shed. It looked like it was about 5,000 square feet. It was about 100 of them. And they were all picking it up in unity and they walked with it and they were walking on one accord. It was just awesome. It was like a lot of people watching around them. It's like, look what they were accomplishing. They didn't have to go get no machine and nothing. It was about maybe 100. It was like all you saw was legs. and they were just moving this shed, and it just showed me the power of working together. They have zero excuses. And it's like, we're not trying to say what they are for us religiously or anything, but for us unity, they have zero excuse. They operate and work together. All they dealing with the group economics and everything. Like they keep their dollar amongst one another, and it's like they create businesses and everything that they do. They make us have to come to them, and that's what you want to do. As Yashua, you want to make the world have to come to you. You want to set things up how Joseph set everything up when he was with Pharaoh. When he was in Egypt, he set everything up after the 7 bad years came, after the 7 good years ago, when the 7 bad years came, then they had everything. And so everybody had to come there to get everything from them, from their storehouse. They had stored everything up. They had it where everybody was coming from them because they were wise. They were doing everything set up. They were doing like the ants do, storing everything up for when things get to a point where they're running out, they already got storage set up already. And this is how working together, you do these things. You can operate together as a whole and make sure that when another one needs help, you're actually there to help them. Don't make them go to the world for help. Don't make them go out and seek help from those that actually really don't want to help them. You have to make sure that this is also a part of the fellowship, working together as a whole. Like I say, this is beyond, once again, sitting down, having a picnic. It's beyond, we'll eat together, but it's in the midst of that, we have to make sure that this is not it, that it's not all just fleshly. There's also, we're doing things also from a spiritual standpoint and also using our strength, we're given to hospitality. So we'll look at Matthew 18, 19 and 20. You can read it whenever you get it.
Matthew 18, verse 19 and 20. Again, I say unto you that if 2 of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. But where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. Okay, so if 2 or 3 are gathered together in his name, he's there in the midst. This shows you working together. He set it up where you have to work together. Like, so he's saying if there are 2 or 3 gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. And so he's going to grant you what you're trying to get because you're operating together. So if the Most High is telling you this, if the Mashiach is telling you to operate in this manner, then of course there's benefits in working together. We'll keep moving along with 1 Corinthians chapter 12, 12 through 25, dealing with the many different members of one body. You can't just glorify one part of the body. Like every part of the body is important. Like everything that it takes to function, the body needs. Like, you need everything. If you really just sit there and think about your own personal body as a whole, you would say, okay, look, if you had to say what part I don't want, you don't really want to say you don't want a part. You want everything that's on your body. You don't want to lose any limbs. You don't want to lose any activity of any of your limbs. You want to make sure that everything can function because everything plays a role. Some roles are small and some roles are great. But at the same time, you wouldn't choose to not have, certain members of your body. And that's the same way we have to treat members that's in the body of the Mashiach. There are many different members to one body. So we'll look at starting off at that 12th verse. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 12. For as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Mashiach. Mm-hmm. For by one Ruach are we all immersed into one body, whether we be Yehudim or of the other nations, whether we be bond or free, and have been all made to drink into one Ruach. So it's one Ruach, a spirit. For those that don't know what Ruach means spirit is just one. And so therefore that one Ruach is actually what we drink into. There's no different Ruach just because you're a different part of the body. Everybody has the same Ruach. It's like when we start dealing with this in the beginning, it was talking about concerning spiritual gifts, but we're just dealing with the many different members of one body to make this point. So no matter what goes on, no matter what you're operating in, it's the same spirit that allows you to operate. I mean, no matter if you're operating, saying if you're starting to be prophetic, if you're operating through healing, through the gifts of help, it's all done through the same Ruach, through the same spirit of Yah. There's no different spirit. It's just that you just have a different function. Your job is just different. 14. Yeah. For the body is not one member, but many. If the foot shall say, because I am not the hand, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body?
Now, how many people don't want their feet? I'm just breaking this down. When you think about this stuff, you got to think about this as in, thinking about your brother or thinking about your uncle, your coach. How many people say to their body, look, I'm fine. I don't even want my feet no more. But then now you're walking around lame. You have to have somebody push you. You need a wheelchair. So now you're missing your feet, and that's a part of the body that you don't have. Now you're handicapped. And we'll keep going down the line.
And if the ear shall say, because I am not the eye, I am not of the body, is it therefore not of the body?
You can't hear. So think about this. Put yourself in the mind of this right here. So take away your hearing. So now you can't hear. I'm just showing you how important it is. This is showing you when you actually look at this and compare this to actually the member of the body, as in your other ox and coatees. Think about how important they are. When you think about how important that member of your body is, like your ears. If you stop your ears up and you can't hear anything, now people are using same sign language to talk to you. That's not a good way to go. You don't want to be like that. It takes away your sense of awareness. You know what I mean? Like now you can't hear. So this is something that's very important. And you want to be able to see also. Go ahead.
If the whole body were an eye, the whole body were an eye, where were the hearing? If the whole were hearing, where were the smelling? But now has Yah set the members, every one of them in the body as it has pleased him. Okay, so we think about all this as a whole. So even when you think about the eyes, so when you close your eyes momentarily and you say, okay, look, would you want to be that way? No, your eyes are important. When you stop up your nose, you don't want to be that way. I mean, your nose is important. You want to make sure that you can smell, want to make sure that you can identify certain things through smell. You identify when things are spoiled. You identify certain aromas on fire. All kind of things. Everything is important. So I'm gonna say, yeah, I want that too. I want to make sure that I have every member of my body, everything. I don't want to be missing nothing. Go ahead. But now has Yah set the members, every one of them in the body as it pleased him. And if they were all one member, where were the body? But now are they many members, yet but one body. And the eye cannot say unto the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. Nay, much more those members of the body which seem to be more feeble are necessary. So it doesn't matter if they seem to be weak, they're still necessary. It doesn't matter how small you identify them as, they're still necessary. Because when you go down the checklist, you don't want to not have one of them. When you just sit there and just be true to yourself and say, look, imagine taking away certain parts of your body, which you like that. You wouldn't like it. I mean, I wouldn't. You go ahead. And those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, upon these we bestow more abundant honor, and our uncomely parts have more abundant comeliness. For our comely parts have no need, but Yahuwah has tempered the body together, having given more abundant honor to that part which lacked, that there should be no schism in the body, but that the members shall have the same care one for another. And that's the thing. When you think about this, when you look around, think about how precious the smaller parts is to you, even though it don't seem to be a big deal. But you think about this, like it's sensitive areas when you start dealing with just your smell and all this kind of stuff, just everything as a whole. What if you weren't able to feel things? What if you didn't have the actual sense of touch, where you didn't know how things felt, where it was just numbness there? There's so much involved into the body to where the Most High makes it operate, in unity, where you're not actually trying to say, okay, look, I don't think this is important. You don't sit there and think about that. You just function, you just operate. And that's how it's supposed to be with us as a whole. It shouldn't be any schism. It shouldn't be any, I would say, just in a position where it's like one think they're greater than another. If you think about this, you don't take the time to say, look, am I going to use my nose today? You don't think about that. You don't say, am I going to use my eyes or am I going to hear today? It automatically happens. And that's the same way it should happen with the body of the Mashiach. You shouldn't have to sit there and wonder about it. It's supposed to happen, just automatically. And so still dealing with working together, we're going to take a look at Kepha and Yehukanan, Peter and John, which is in Acts chapter 3, starting at the first verse. You get it, you can just go to it. Right. Acts 3, verse 1. Now Kepha and Yehukanan went up together into the temple at the hour of prayer, being the ninth hour. And a certain man lame from his mother's womb was carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful, to ask alms of them that enter into the temple. who seeing Kepha and Yehukanan about to go into the temple asking alms.
Now, the point I'm trying to bring out is he saw Kepha and Yehukanan. He saw them together. Now, they wasn't alone. Remember, they're still following the pattern. Remember, the Mashiach sent them out by twos. It was always somebody and another. This is Kepha and Yehukanan. You always see a group most of the time when you see something going on. And so they're together at this point. And so the power of Yah is going to operate. We just finished reading in Matthew, any two. So we already know that right now they're already in unity spiritually. They already know what they're supposed to be doing as a whole. So now anybody that entertains them, they're already geared up and prepared to deal with the task. Go ahead.
And Kepha fastened his eyes upon him with Yehukanan and said, look on us.
Now they said, look on us. He didn't say, look, this is the point I'm trying to make out. He said, look on us, not look on me, not look on him. He said, look on us. This is the power working together. This is actually power right here. He said, look on us. Go ahead.
And he gave heed unto them, expecting to receive something of them. The innkeeper said, silver and gold have I none, but such as I have give I you. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, the Nazarite, rise up and walk. And he took him by the right hand and lifted him up. And immediately his feet and ankle bones received strength. And he leaping up stood and walked and entered with them into the temple, walking and leaping and praising Yah.
And this is the power of Yah. It operated through them together in unity. It said, look on us. And as he looked on us, they fastened their eyes on him. They fastened their eyes on him. And when they fastened their eyes on him, at that point, that's when they began to grab him up and he began to receive strength. So this was the power of unity. And this happened together. Like a lot of people don't realize that one didn't just take off and do it while the other was with him. They were operating in unity. And this is the power of working together. The true power of Yah begins to flow when you work together in unity. Same thing happens in prayer. Same thing happens in praise and worship. In the upper room in Acts, they were all on one accord. You know what I'm saying? So we have to look at everything as a whole. When you see unity, most of the time, this is where the Most High start being moved. There's a sound in unity that the Most High hears. Even when you start dealing with Egypt around the time, you say the cry of the people begin to come up to the Most High. He began to be concerned as a whole. These were his people. He didn't turn his back against them. The cry of them began to come up to him as a memorial in a sense. And at that point, he said, look, I have to raise up a savior. It was already set up. The way was already made when they saved Moshe from out of the water. It was already made, but he began to develop him. He had him set up in the house of Pharaoh so that he can learn the ways of them, so that he can actually, it's like the Most High played chess with them. He actually allowed Moshe to be raised by Pharaoh in his house and to be actually set up with him and to enjoy everything that he's enjoyed. He was actually connected with him heavy. So when the time came to give that word, he couldn't deny it. You know what I'm saying? He had a hard heart because the Most High sometimes they say, well, harden Pharaoh's heart. But Moshe was one that he had to deal with because he knew for a fact he was amongst them. Like, who in their right mind is going to leave all this? Is going to leave everything. He had everything he needed. He was in royalty. He was willing to turn his back on that for the sake of his brother. And this showed actually a true conviction to come forth. And see, Pharaoh, he kept on going all the way until that firstborn left. He kept on going. He even pursued again after that. It's like he just had a hard heart. The Most High just kept showing his power through him. This was actually done just to show that we can be delivered out of bondage. And that happened through unity. When they came out together. They came out as a great multitude of them came out as a whole together. Some of them, it wasn't just some of them, it was all of them that came out. And so this is what we look at, just the power of working together. So we'll go to the next slide and look and see about supporting one another. This is also when you start dealing with fellowship, you have to support one another. You need to be given to hospitality. You need to make sure that you're concerned about one another's needs. We'll look at Ecclesiastes chapter 4. About to narrow down here. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, starting off at the 9th verse.
Ecclesiastes 4:9. Two are better than one because they have a good reward of their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falls, for he has not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him. And a 3/4 cord is not quickly broken.
And that's the thing. So when you're operating in unity, it helps you as a whole. It's like there are benefits altogether as a whole. We talk about supporting one another. And I use that example because it just shows that even if you just have one other individual, it helps you out more. Like, this helps out in all areas of life, all aspects of life, even in business. When you have one other business partner, then you're pulling two separate financial groups together. You're pulling two separate incomes together, basically. And so you're able to accomplish the goal quicker. It's not all just in fighting and being warm, it's in every area. And so we'll go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. And I think about that 14th verse.
1 Thessalonians 5:14. Now we exhort you, brethren, warn them that are unruly, comfort the feeble-minded, support the weak, be patient toward all men.
Yeah, so support the weak, comfort the feeble-minded. So you have people that are feeble-minded. And that's what I was saying. When someone is feeble-minded, how can they be comforted if they don't have a support group, if they don't have anybody that they're around? So sometimes when you're in a situation where you're all by yourself, there's no one to help you. So if you're feeble-minded, nobody knows. So you just begin to fall. So this is why it's important to have a support group, because if someone is lagging behind mentally, then there are other ones that can encourage them. There are other ones that can help them get their mind right and get their mind on track. And the enemy wants to take your mind. The mind is the battlefield. Once you start taking your mind, start putting these negative thoughts in your mind, then you begin to fall. That's what he started doing. The first thing, he started making you feel like it's all going to be doom and gloom.
Right.
You can have one small thing ailing you, hurting you. All of a sudden now he's making you feel like you're going to die. Like, and see, this is why you have to have people around you, because you've been feeling something for a while. You can have somebody you can tell this to. They can say, look, we're going to pray against this, help you seek medical attention. What needs to happen so that you can actually have your actual mentality back? You need to have your mind. If your mind is not intact, then the enemy is going to have a field day with you, because he'll make the thing be magnified and it's not as big as what it should be. It don't matter what it seems like. What matters is whether or not you trust the Most High or not. Because one thing about it, he's still on the throne. It doesn't matter. It's like, whose report are you going to believe? Like, we can't take away the miracles in the way that the Most High works because we hear reports from man. We have to make sure that we're wise to utilize these reports in a proper manner, but at the same time, we need to believe the report of Yah. And so we're going to look at James chapter 2. James chapter 2, starting off at the 15th verse.
All right.
You got it. You can go ahead.
James 2:15. If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled, notwithstanding ye give them not those things which are needful to the body, what does it profit? Even so belief, if it has not works, is dead, being alone. Yea, a man say, you have belief, and I have works. Show me your belief without your works, and I will show you my belief by my works. You believe that there is one Yah, you do well. The devils also believe and tremble. But will you know, O vain man, that belief without works is dead?
So it's not just enough to believe only. That's the thing. So if it was just belief, then it would be okay. Everything all be open. But you have to work this thing out. And so basically what we're looking at is if you seeing somebody that needs something, if they're hungry, basically, and they're coming, you saying, hey, I need some food, and they're of the household of faith, especially, you say, okay, look, I'm gonna pray that, some food appear your way, that everything works out. That's not what you're supposed to do. Give them the food so that they can be full. You believe it with them at the same time, give them what they need right then, put some works along with what you're saying, because you got it already. Like, you don't have to go find it. This is given to hospitality, rather than telling them, hey, look, I'll pray for you. And this is what usually happens in religion. They just say, we'll be praying for you. Now, this is like, just a general statement that you hear all the time. But if you have it already, now, what we've been tricked to do is to reach out to the world rather than to actually these that are around us. Like, we've been tricked to just reach out into the world. Like, the world teaches you, through some of the churches and stuff, just to go out on the corner and start doing it. Ain't nothing wrong with witnessing and starting to do certain things, but at the same time, they're doing that and they neglect the household of faith. That's the thing. So that's why the word says, especially those, most of the time you'll see, like, we're not supposed to ignore everybody out there, but they're not supposed to be the priority like that. The priority is supposed to be those that are amongst you. The strength lies among those that are sanctified, those that are set apart, those that are doing the will of God. That's who you're supposed to be helping. Religion and some of the churches teach you to go out and just have a some type of little, whatever they do, just start feeding the homeless and all that. We get all that. But at the end of the day, if you have people that's in the household of faith that's hungry, why are you going that way? Like, this is just, most of the time, that stuff is just a part just to get members. Once again, you shouldn't be joining anything but the body of the Mashiach. We should be fellowshipping together as a whole, but you don't join anything outside of this right here, because when you connect yourself to something, you're one with it. Just like if you connect yourself to a harlot, you become one with the harlot. So make sure you're careful who you say I do to. You know, it's okay to have casual things that you're dealing with as a whole, or casual groups you deal with, but when you connect yourself with a group, you bind yourself to the rules and regulations of that group. That was a spiritual contract that's being written, and you don't even know it because you're carnal-minded. But if you begin to open up your mind and be spiritual-minded, you'll realize that all contracts are not signed in ink. Some of them are just based on action. Like, you know, you don't sign nothing in ink when you commit acts of adultery and acts of fornication. It's contractual at that moment you committed to sin. Like that, you know, this is why we have certain sins when people get to talking about what is less or great. Yeah, they are sins that merit more, you know, I would say punishment than another one does, because some sins you sin against your own body. You know, certain things you do them not in ignorance. You do them because you're just rebellious and disobedient. So these things begin to carry a heavier judgment, sometimes even death. And so let's look at Galatians 6, 1 through 10. That'll wind us up. Galatians chapter 6, 1 through 10.
Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such one in the Ruach spirit of meekness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted.
And this is what I'm saying. This is why I went here, because supporting one another. This is the part that's usually neglected, because we don't usually notice this most of the time, because it's usually a situation where somebody's saying they're okay. Like anytime this is why you have to make sure that you're in fellowship. This is why you have to make sure that you're in actually communion and that you're actually operating with one another, because if you don't, then you don't even know this most of the time, because the person is going to lie. They're going to say, I'm fine. I've done it tons of times. Something's going on because it just wasn't the proper time. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you say you find everything fine is just a general statement. Now I understand when you not telling your business to certain ones, but I'm talking in general. We make it where it's never a time to come together and say, I'm dealing with this. It has to be a point in time that you say, look, okay, now I have this issue that's going on. It doesn't matter what it is. You got to realize there's power in prayer. When we come together in prayer, the Most High will turn the table. Everything begin to turn in your favor. He said, you know, the king's heart is in his hand. He said, turn it like the rivers of water in whichever way he will. Remember Hezekiah, when the prophet came to him and told him, get your house in order, you getting ready to die. Well, he turned his face to the wall and said, look, I walked up right before you. I've done everything I need to do. You know, I'm not ready to go right now. Then they laid something on his leg, and there was a ball or something there began to go down. And he said, look, I'm going to add, 15 more years to his life or something of that nature? You know, they began to add more time to his life. So when they add that more time, it was based upon what he had stored up at that point in time. So I'm saying that to say things can change. So you need to be around people that you can share trauma with. Certain things that you have in your life that has happened that caused you to go backward, that caused you to slip or slide. You need to make sure there's somebody that's around that you can talk to and you can say, look, I'm dealing with this. But pride makes us not do it, and the enemy likes that. See, this is the thing. You have to be open. If you're walking upright, there won't be no pride. The problem with this is most of us want to still hold on to certain things, so we know that when this time come up, we're not going to tell anybody. But secret sin causes death. It causes the enemy to come into your life and destroy certain things in your life because you give him a gateway. It's like you actually make an agreement with darkness when you do certain things. And so therefore they can come in and attack you in certain areas because of the way that you're operating. If you're operating in that manner, you don't have nobody you can talk to because you're ashamed. And shame puts you on the island, and that's when the enemy begins to have his way with you because you don't have nobody that you trust, that you feel comfortable telling this to because you feel bad because you didn't. But it's better that you feel shame, that it brings you to repentance, than that you not tell somebody and don't get the help. This is where we lack the actual the gift at in the body in Yasha'al, because through prophecy, when you're operating as a whole, when your ruach is open, when you have that companionship, that the comrades that are around you at that time, the fellowship that's around you, the atmosphere begin to be conducive to you to be open to hear something. Like the Most High say, look, this person is dealing with this. And you'll begin to hear it in the Ruach and say, look, I know this, I had a dream about you, or something's going on with you. I need you to, to look into this right here. And they'll say, you know what? I've been thinking about this for a long time. This can't be nothing but the Most High. That can't operate when you're alone. Like, don't get me wrong, he can still give warnings and words to certain individuals, but after so long, he's going to let you be turned over into a reprobated mind. So before it gets to that point, you have to reel it on in and say, look, realize and embrace the importance of having somebody that you can be held accountable to. Like we say, those that are married, you have, your husband, you have your wife. Those that are not, this is where the fellowship comes in at. This is where it comes in at when you're connected to a body of believers. We're not talking about joining churches. We're talking about just members of the body of the Mashiach. That's the only thing you should be a member of, but you should be able to share emotions, feelings, and certain things that you're dealing with. I'm talking from financial on up, on down to sickness and everything. These things can all be corrected through action and through prayer. Like we know prayer and we have faith, and then we have the action that'll be taken. Seek the Most High. When you seek the Most High, if you seek him with all your heart, with all your mind, all your soul, he will be found. Like if you seek the Most High through fasting, through prayer, he will be found. He will give the answer. If he don't give it to you, he'll give it to somebody, and prophecy will come forth. It's either going to cause prophecy to come forth, it's going to cause him to allow you to have a dream, or it's going to be an impression on your heart to know, okay, look, this is my answer. This is what I need to do. But most of the time, we just put it on the back burner and just leave it to fate and say, okay, look, that's flipping a coin. We don't want to flip coins. We want to make sure that we have a sure answer and say in him is yeah, and in him is amen. So the only way we can get that is knowing that we're operating together. Go ahead. I think on 2.
Verse 2. Galatians 6:2. Bear you one another's burdens, and so fulfill the Torah of Mashiach.
Now, this is fulfilling the Torah. Bear you one another's burdens. You can't bear one another's burdens on an island. This is the importance, once again, of supporting one another. The importance of fellowship, making sure that when one is sick, everybody begins to feel, compassion toward this individual. When one is down in any area of their life, everyone begins to feel this certain, warmth about this individual. This is the true meaning of fellowship, when you're actually operating together as a whole. And if we don't get to this point, if we just still keep it kicking the bobo, just kind of just going on willy-nilly, we ain't gonna get nowhere. When I talked about group economics, I'm talking about just remember Black Wall Street. Look what they accomplished. Just imagine what can be accomplished with the Most High pushing you all together as a whole, because everything that went on with our ancestors and all things that happened that led us here, that stuff happened. But when you operate in the Ruach HaKodesh, the Most High make you be superior to these things that you're saying that's calling you to be down, like all these stigmas and everything that's in your way with them wanting to prefer one race over another. These things are only a hindrance to those that are operating in the flesh. When you start operating in the Ruach, these things begin to be easier, but through the Ruach, there's more to it than just praying and saying it's going to happen. You have to put action to it. And to put action to it, you have to band together through working together, whether it be through e-commerce, just basic group economics, support one another as a whole in every area. And if you don't do that, then it's like you're constantly struggling. One thing I looked at when I studied these other nations, they operate together as a whole. Everything that you see together, even some of the places that you say, look, I don't even believe nothing about this particular church, is saying that they're doing everything cricket, they still operate in unity and they get things accomplished. It's like a big support system there. And this is what you have to make it. Go ahead.
3. For if a man think himself to be something, when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another. For every man shall bear his own burden.
And this is separate from one another. This is saying you still have to bear your own burden, but you're supposed to also bear one another's burden. When you're supposed to have compassion to another when they're going through something.
Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teaches in all good things.
So it said, let him that is taught in the word. So if you're in a situation where you have a minister or something that you've given yourself wholly to, that's saying that they're watching over your soul, it said communicate in all good things back to them. It doesn't mean, it's kind of like Paul them said, if we gave you our spiritual thing, is it wrong that we take your carnal thing? They're not playing a game on them, but what they're saying is, that's the actual idea in which you're saying, okay, look, I minus the word of Yah in this person, not so much as you lifting the person up, but it say communicate in all good things. That covers the whole man. That's what fellowship covers, the whole man, everything as a whole. Go ahead.
Be not deceived. Yah is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. For he that sows to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that sows to the Ruach spirit shall of the spirit reap life everlasting.
And so you have to focus more on the things of the spirit, more on the things of the Ruach. Therefore, you can reap the things of the Ruach. If you keep concerned of being concerned about the flesh only, these are the benefits that you're going to get. This is why the word says, in the word it says, bodily exercise profits little. It don't say it don't profit at all, but it said profits little. It still helps you, but at the same time, it's little. But if you do that little, that it does profit, and then also focus more on the things of the Ruach and the things of the spirit, then you begin to profit more. Because if there's a little, then there's also a more. So we know that if it say body exercise prophesies little, spiritual exercise prophesies much. And that's what we have. That's it. All you have is the flesh when you're talking the body, and you have the spirit when you're talking prayer, and you're talking the things of Yah, fasting, whatever you need to do concerning things that he told you to do as a whole, operating with one another in love.
And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are the household of belief.
And that's what it ended on. It says, let us do good unto all men. It says, especially unto them who are of the household of belief. This is why I was saying earlier, especially. That's the thing. So we don't go backwards. It's like what I see most of the time going on. You're running out there, having all these campaigns trying to feed the homeless and all this, and they're not of the household of belief. I understand witnessing and everything, but when you neglect the household of belief to do it, that's when the issue comes in. Like I said, how could a man take care of the house of Yah when he can't to rule his own house well? That's why it start giving the rules to a bishop. A bishop must rule his own house well. Must be the husband of one wife. He must do everything. He must be blameless. He must not be have his name slandered in the street, living in whoremonger and all that kind of stuff. He must walk upright before Yah. That's the thing. So if you can't do that, then you have to sit down. If you're saying that you're a bishop or anybody that's out there and everything is running all out of order in your home, you're saying you're neglecting your home for the house. It's like that's not supposed to happen. That your home is supposed to be a part of the house. Everything's supposed to operate in unity. And so, you don't see me sitting here and then my family somewhere different. Like that's not how that works. When you see that going on, that's the first sign of dysfunction, and the Most High is not there in unity. You got anything that you want to add? So basically, I want to talk about the, we went over the certain things of the importance of fellowship. We went over working together, of course. We want to also support one another. These things are going to be critical, because if you don't support one another, what it means is you're saying you can do it on your own. But the ones that are saying they can do it on their own are not accomplishing anything. Like I don't see any of these big stores in their name. I don't see any farms where they're functioning and they're operating, feeding Chipotle, so, giving them everything. They got to have vegetables and everything. I don't see none of that going on as a whole, yet there's no banding together. And see, this is not even a question of the matter when it comes to these other nations. They're banding together and they're buying everything. Like I'm seeing them now, once again, in the subways are owned by most of the Indians. Everything is set up where every time I turn around, I see them in another gas station, because they operate as in unity. It doesn't matter who you see behind the desk or behind the counter. They've already band their finance together as a whole, and they're setting up themselves so that they can line themselves up and get the grants and everything that's lined up so that you can get. They're taking advantage of stuff that we're supposed to be taking advantage of. But most of the time, the individuals with the knowledge are withholding it because they're thinking one is going to outdo them. This is that crab in the bucket mentality that has held us back for years. One thinking the other is going to outshine them. Who's going to be in charge? The person that's in charge is most of the time the person that has the actual intellect to actually construct the actual particulars of the business most of the time. And they actually line themselves up and they begin to disperse out different orders to certain ones so that they can have everything in common as a whole. Everybody can't be in charge. Like you can't have everybody in charge. If that's the fight, you've already lost the battle because you're focused on something that's not important. The important part is, do we all profit from the actual, from what's going on as a whole, from the business that we came together and done. And we don't do the group economics as a whole, as a people, talking now mainly to anybody that may come across this video on YouTube as a whole. You need to realize that to win the battle, you're going to have to consider what was going on in Black Wall Street, what went on every time we came together in unity when things were accomplished. It was because of the fact that we had the same mind. Everything that we did it based on the idea that we wasn't concerned about another person winning and we're losing. When you have that mentality, you've already lost because you're saying that they're going to get the upper hand over you before you even enter into the agreement. It's like there's already doubt. So this is where prayer comes in at. This is where you have to make sure that when you operate together as a whole, that you do what the Most High is showing you to do, but you have to be open. Like he's not going to force this on you. Like you have to be open to know that this must happen. Once you receive the fact that this has to happen to get ahead, then he's going to put you with who you need to be put with, where it won't be any issues or problems. And if we thinking, okay, look, there's nobody out there, then you already lost. If you think you can't do it, then it's not going to happen. That's how it works. If you think you won't accomplish, then you won't accomplish. When you go in to start a race, everybody that's starting that race have in their mind, they're going to win. Right. It don't matter if it's 100 of them. Everybody's saying we're going to win. And that's the thing. That's the mentality you got to have. You have to have the mentality that we're going to win. And it's not hard. The only thing that's hard, you have to get your own self out of the way. You have to get that mentality. You have to start downloading the things in your subconscious mind that you want to accomplish concerning the things of Yah. Now, this is why I say of Yah, because it's very critical that you say it, because we don't want to start focusing on stuff. Seek ye first the kingdom of Yah and his righteousness, and all these things will be added. But if you're doing that already as a whole, you have to make sure that you're feeding yourself with the information that needs to be given to you so that you can take action. If you just talk about it and don't take action, it won't happen either. You have to set yourself up to take action. If you're not able to take action on something, if something going to need training or whatever it may need in a certain area in the system in Babylon that we're in now, go through the training. If it's going to be something you say, look, if it's the way you want to set some type of medical facility or something up, if you need somebody, send a few of them through medical training areas where they can actually be set up to operate in the facility that you're going to function with. That's the thing, but we don't think we can accomplish these things because most of the stuff has been flooded by those that are in Babylon to the point where they regulate it so much to the point where it makes it difficult for us to operate on that level from a holistic level. There's a lot of things that you can do that's not surgery that you can run in a medical field that you can do that's actually a way that can get you by without having to go to the doctor on a regular basis. We can operate, our own medical facility, but we have to have those that are qualified there that can do it, those that are regulated to some degree. But this is how, and this can be ours. This can be ours. We don't have to work for them, but you have to have that mentality to know that you can be the head and not the tail. Right. Lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. Only way you can get to that point is having the same mind frame. You can't take no for an answer. That's one mentality I would always use most of the time. A long time ago, I adapted that. I was not going to take no for an answer on certain things. Certain things, when no begins to come, the key to this stuff is not so much as when you fast, when you pray to get the Most High to do anything, it builds your faith level up. Right. It builds you up personally because he's already there. But what he's wanting to see is how bad do you want this? Are you willing to set yourself aside? Are you willing to consecrate yourself and get yourself set apart to a point where I can, begin to manifest this thing in your life where I can do this? We're not talking about worldly manifestation and cosmos and all. We're talking about when you grab hold to the Most High. When you grab hold of the Most High, when you begin to neglect your flesh and begin to enter into a realm that's all spiritual to the point where you're getting fed spiritual food. At that point where you fasted to a point where now it's to a point where you have the joy of Yah to a point where you don't want anything. When it's to that point, all you want is the manifestation of what he said going to happen is at that point, the table turns. With that, I'll say, Shabbat Shalom. If you don't have anything else to say, I'll end in prayer. But Yah, we thank you right now for the word that went forth. We thank you right now for Yah that we realize the importance of fellowship as a whole. For Yah, thank you right now for us operating together as a whole. For Yah, we thank you right now we come against the spirit of division. We come against any spirit that the enemy tries to bring to cause confusion in our life as a whole. For Yah, we think right now we operate on a level, for Yah, of high frequency in the things of you, for Yah. For Yah, once again, we magnify your name right now, for Yah. I want to just appreciate you, for Yah, for just waking me up this morning personally, for Yah. For Yah, thank you for all those that are on the sound of my voice right now, for Yah. We thank you as a whole, for Yah, for this day that you have made. And we shall continue to rejoice and be glad in it, Father Yah. And we thank you right now that we can do all things through the Mashiach, Father Yah, will strengthen us.
Yes,
In the name of Son, Yahushua Mashiach, we pray. So be it.